Welcome back to another thrilling HFY sci-fi tale. Tonight's story will shock you. Imagine a bite so deadly that no alien has ever survived it. A venom feared across the stars. Yet when an alien warrior sank her fangs into a human, he did not fall. He smiled. What followed shook their entire world. Stay with me till the end to feel every twist, every battle, and every heartbeat. And before we dive in, make sure you hit subscribe, drop a like if you enjoy these stories, and comment your favorite moment. Your support helps this channel grow and keeps these epic human legends alive. The sky was burning. Flames stretched across the horizon, lighting up the ruins of a once proud city. Explosions shook the ground and the air was heavy with smoke and the metallic taste of war. Soldiers ran, weapons clashed, and screams echoed into the night. The war between humans and the alien dominion had reached its cruelest point. Among the chaos stood one man, his armor cracked, his blade covered in dust and blood. His name was Daniel. He had fought longer than he could remember, and now he was alone, surrounded by enemies. Shadows moved in the smoke. From those shadows stepped a figure unlike any soldier he had ever faced. She was tall, with silver hair, glowing in the firelight. Golden lines carved into her skin like living scars and eyes burning like molten suns. Her fangs glistened when she hissed. She wore dark armor, shining with strange alien markings, and every soldier around her bowed. In fear, Daniel raised his sword, but his arms trembled. He was exhausted, yet his gaze stayed locked on hers. The alien warrior's lips curled into a smile. "Human," she said in a voice that was both sharp and melodic, "you will die by my bite." Before Daniel could react, she lunged. Her claws pinned him against broken stone. Her fangs sank into his shoulder. Pain burned like liquid fire as venom surged into his veins. The alien soldiers around them leaned forward, waiting for the inevitable, waiting for the human to collapse, twitch, and die like all the others before him. No living creature had ever survived her bite. Not one. But Daniel did not fall. At first his breath grew ragged, his face pale. The venom burned, tearing through his body. Yet instead of screaming, instead of begging for mercy, he looked at her and smiled. The alien warrior froze. Her golden eyes widened. "What?" she whispered, her voice trembling for the first time. Daniel's smile was weak but steady. "Is that all you've got?" he said through clenched teeth. The alien gasped, pulling back slightly. Her venom should have stopped his heart. It should have ended him instantly. But this human was still standing. His defiance shook her more than any weapon ever had. The soldiers around them whispered in fear. Some stepped back. They looked at their commander, the warrior who had never failed. She stared at the human, her hands trembling as though she had bitten into death itself and found it staring back. Daniel took a deep breath. His body ached, but he forced his legs to stay firm. "If you want me dead," he said, "you'll have to try harder." For the first time in her life, the alien warrior felt something she never thought possible. Not rage, not hunger, not triumph, but doubt. The battlefield grew silent, the flames crackling like whispers of destiny. And in that silence, something began. Something that would change the fate of both their worlds. The alien warrior stepped back, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. She could still taste the human's blood on her tongue, still feel the pulse of his heart when her fangs had pierced his skin. It made no sense. Her venom was designed by nature itself to kill, to paralyze, to stop even the fiercest beasts in seconds. She had ended generals, assassins, even massive war creatures with a single bite. Yet this man, this human, was not. Only alive, he had smiled at her. Her soldiers were whispering now, their voices carrying through the smoke of battle. He should be dead. No one survives her bite. Is he cursed? The whispers grew louder until even she felt them like knives pressing into her armor. For the first time in many years, she felt the sting of doubt. If she lost control, if she looked weak, they would lose faith in her. She could not allow that. And yet, her golden eyes kept falling back to the human's steady gaze. He was not gloating, not mocking her. He simply stood there, blood dripping from his wound, his jaw tight, his body trembling but unbroken. Daniel felt the venom burning through his veins like liquid fire. Every part of his body screamed at him to collapse, but he refused. Pain was not new to him. He had grown up in war, lived in shadows, and carried scars inside and out. Pain was a language he understood. What shocked him was not the agony but the look on the alien warrior's face. For a moment he thought he saw fear. Not his own fear, hers. That thought made him chuckle softly, and the sound made the alien warrior stiffen as though struck. "What are you?" she demanded, her voice low, almost trembling. Daniel lifted his head. His lips were pale, but the fire in his eyes did not dim. "Just human," he answered. "That's all." Her soldiers recoiled at the word, but she could not. Something inside her twisted. She had been raised to see humans as weak, fragile creatures, their bodies too soft, their minds too quick to break. But this man was neither weak nor broken. He was standing against her venom with nothing but willpower. That was more terrifying than any weapon she had faced. The Dominion commander, who had been watching from behind, finally stepped forward. His heavy armor clanked as he looked between her and the human. "Impossible," he growled. "No one survives the venom of your kind." His eyes narrowed. "Unless he is not a man at all." The alien warrior bristled, her pride stung by the suggestion. "He is human," she snapped. "I bit him myself." "Then prove it again," the commander said coldly. "Bite him until he falls. Do not stop until he is dead." For the first time, her heart faltered. She looked at Daniel. He should have been her enemy, nothing more. She should have obeyed and ended him without thought. But the memory of his smile, defiant and calm in the face of certain death, echoed inside her mind. Killing him now felt wrong, though she could not explain why. Daniel's voice broke her hesitation. "Do it," he said. She blinked at him in shock. His eyes locked on hers, steady despite the pain. "If you think I'll bow to your venom, then go ahead. Try again." The boldness of his words silenced the crowd. Even the commander's scowl faltered. The alien warrior's claws trembled as she gripped the human's armor, ready to sink her fangs into him once more. But as she leaned close, her eyes met his, and for a heartbeat she froze. She had never bitten someone who stared back at her with no fear. It was as if he was daring her, not to kill him, but to understand him. Slowly, she pulled away. Gasps rose from the soldiers. "No," she whispered. "I will not," the commander snarled. "You disobey me?" She turned her head sharply, her golden hair flashing in the firelight. "He is mine now," she said with a strange firmness that surprised even herself. "And I will decide his fate." The soldiers murmured again, their fear now mixed with awe. Daniel, his body still burning with venom, managed to smirk despite the pain. He did not understand why she had spared him, but he knew one thing. Something inside her had shifted. And in that moment, on a battlefield drowning in smoke and blood, the bond between predator and prey cracked open into something new. Not trust. Not friendship. But the first fragile spark of a story that neither of them could have imagined. The days that followed were not kind. Daniel was dragged in chains through the halls of the Dominion fortress, a dark citadel carved into the mountainside. Its walls pulsed with alien light, alive with patterns that seemed to watch him. Every step echoed with whispers from soldiers who stopped what they were doing just to catch a glimpse of him. The human who had survived the bite of their fiercest warrior. Some looked at him with awe, others with hatred, but all with fear. Commander had wasted no time. He declared that the human would face a series of trials designed to prove whether he was truly mortal or some strange monster pretending to wear human skin. The alien warrior who had bitten him, known among her kind as Serenia, was ordered to oversee these trials. It was meant to be punishment for her defiance. Yet as she walked beside Daniel in silence, her thoughts tangled like vines. She had claimed him to protect him from immediate death, but now every trial threatened to break him apart before her eyes. The first test was fire. Daniel was chained to a pillar in the courtyard, and molten plasma was poured around him, scorching the ground until the air shimmered with heat. The Dominion soldiers watched, expecting to see his skin peel and his body collapse. Instead, Daniel stood tall. Sweat rolled down his face, his lips cracked, his armor hissed with steam, but he did not scream. He locked his gaze on Serenia as though daring her to look away. She didn't. When the fire finally faded, his body trembled, but he remained standing, his jaw set like stone. The second test was steel. Blades forged from alien alloys were pressed against his flesh, designed to slice through bone with ease. Soldiers cut his arms, his chest, his back, waiting to see if he would break. Daniel gritted his teeth, his breath harsh, but still no cry escaped him. Every cut left crimson trails across his skin, but his eyes, those stubborn human eyes, never lost their spark. Serenia clenched her fists as she watched. She had seen hardened warriors crumble under less. Why did this human still endure? The third test was weight. They placed massive chains across his shoulders, each one heavy enough to crush lesser beings flat. Daniel staggered under the burden, his knees threatening to buckle, but he refused to fall. Every muscle burned and blood dripped from his wounds, yet he pushed back against the crushing force until the ground beneath him cracked. Soldiers murmured uneasily. Some stepped back. The commander's scowl deepened. By the end of the third trial, Daniel collapsed to one knee, his body shaking. Serenia moved instinctively, stepping forward, her claws half raised to shield him. The commander's voice cut like a blade. "Do not touch him." She froze, her chest heaving. She could not show weakness, but inside, a storm was raging. She had been taught all her life that humans were fragile, nothing more than prey. Yet here stood one who had turned venom into defiance, fire into silence, steel into scars, and weight into strength. That night, as Daniel was dragged back to his cell, Serenia followed. She lingered at the door while the guards chained him to the wall. His body was battered, his skin torn, but his eyes still held that maddening calm. When the guards left, she stepped inside, her golden glow faint in the dark. "Why?" she asked, quietly. Her voice no longer carried the sharpness of command, but something softer, almost uncertain. "Why do you not break? No creature survives such pain." Daniel lifted his head, his lips cracked into a faint smile. "Because pain doesn't mean defeat. Where I come from, we endure. That's all." Serenia's chest tightened. She had no answer for that. For the first time in her life, she felt the edges of admiration creeping in, dangerous and unwanted. She should have despised him. Instead, she found herself studying the curve of his jaw, the fire in his gaze, the strange way his weakness carried more strength than she had ever seen. Outside the cell, the commander watched through the shadows, his expression unreadable. He had seen enough to know this human was no ordinary prisoner. He would demand harsher trials, more brutal tests, until the truth was revealed, or until Daniel was broken. But Serenia's claws curled as she left the cell, her mind whispering a silent promise. "If they try to destroy him, I will not let them." Coup. War had created many enemies, but now in the heart of the Dominion's fortress, something more dangerous than hatred was taking root. Something fragile, powerful, and impossible to control. The fortress never slept. Its walls pulsed with alien light, and guards patrolled the halls with weapons that hummed like predators in the dark. Every corner carried the weight of watchful eyes. Daniel had spent days enduring trial after trial, each one crueler than the last. His body was battered, his wounds barely healed, yet his spirit refused to break. He had begun to notice it in their stares, fear, doubt, even respect. The Dominion soldiers no longer whispered about a fragile human. They whispered about something unexplainable. Serenia walked the halls in silence, her armor catching glints of gold from the fortress walls. She had stood beside him through every test, her heart tightening each time he refused to yield. She did not understand this bond forming inside her chest, but she could not deny it. The commander wanted him destroyed, dissected even, but the thought of Daniel reduced to nothing more than an experiment filled her with rage she had never felt before. That night, she entered his cell. The guards saluted and stepped aside. None dared question her now. Inside, Daniel sat chained against the wall, his breathing slow, his face pale but steady. When his eyes lifted to hers, there was no hatred, only that same unshakable calm. "You should be dead 10 times over," she said softly, though the sharpness of her tone had faded. "And yet here you sit." Daniel gave a faint smile. "Guess I'm not very good at following rules." For a moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the hum of the fortress walls. Then Serenia leaned closer. Her golden eyes flickered with something uncharacteristic. Hesitation. "They will not stop. The commander will keep testing you until your body collapses. There is only one chance to escape. I can give it to you." Daniel studied her carefully. "Why?" Her jaw tightened. She had no answer that made sense, even to herself. Finally, she said, "Because I do not wish to watch you die." Most men would have leapt at the offer, but Daniel's response left her speechless. He shook his head. "Not without them." Serenia frowned. "Them?" Daniel nodded toward the far corner of the dungeon, beyond the iron bars of his cell. Through the shadows of the adjoining chambers, Serenia followed his gaze. Alien prisoners, not humans, her own people, bruised and broken, cast aside as traitors or slaves. Some were too weak to lift their heads. Others stared with hollow eyes. They were forgotten, discarded by the Dominion's ruthless rule. "You would risk everything for them?" Serenia asked, disbelief curling her words. "They are not your kind. They are not even your allies." Daniel's eyes did not waver. "They're alive, that's reason enough." The simplicity of his words struck her harder than any blade. She had been raised in a world where strength decided worth, where the weak were left to rot. Yet here was a man who had every reason to think only of survival, and still he would not abandon strangers. Something inside her armor cracked that night, though she did not speak of it. She turned away, her claws tightening. "You are a fool," she said, but her voice betrayed her. It trembled as though she feared his answer more than the commander's. Wrath. Daniel smiled again, tired but unyielding. "Maybe, but that's who I am." The following nights became a quiet conspiracy. Serenia began slipping into the dungeons after the guards rotated, carrying fragments of stolen food and whispered words of warning. She memorized the patrols, marked the weak points in the fortress walls, and watched for the exact moment when escape could be possible. Daniel, though still chained, began earning the trust of the other prisoners. Some looked at him with skepticism, others with desperate hope. In time, even their eyes began to hold sparks of belief. But the closer the plan came to reality, the more dangerous it became. Rumors spread through the fortress, rumors of guards finding strange patterns scratched into walls, of supplies vanishing, of prisoners whispering with renewed energy. The commander's suspicion grew, his watch tightened, and he warned Serenia with a cold smile that if the human faltered again, she would be punished alongside him. Yet Serenia no longer cared about punishment. Something stronger than duty now guided her steps, though she refused to name it. All she knew was this: when Daniel spoke of freedom, she believed him. When he looked at her, she felt seen not as a weapon, but as something more. The night of the escape drew near. The fortress lights dimmed, the mountain winds howled, and silence cloaked the walls like a waiting shadow. Serenia stood outside his cell one final time, her claws resting on the lock. "Are you ready, human?" she whispered. Daniel's eyes, though tired, gleamed with fire. Always, and with a twist of her claw, the chains that bound him snapped. The escape had begun. The fortress erupted in fire. The alarm horns blared. their sound cutting through stone like the cry of some ancient beast. Guards poured into the halls, weapons glowing, armor clattering. The prisoners who had once been shadows in chains now surged with desperate hope, following the human who had smiled at death and the alien warrior who had defied her own commander. Daniel's body was weak, still aching, from trials that should have killed him, but adrenaline blazed in his veins like lightning. He swung a stolen blade with raw determination, each strike fueled by something greater than strength alone: purpose. The prisoners rallied to his courage, their broken voices shouting for freedom as they clashed with their captors. Serenia fought. Beside him, her claws tearing through enemy soldiers with savage precision. Her golden eyes glowed fiercely. But tonight they carried more than duty. Every strike she made was not for the Dominion, not for her commander's approval. It was to shield him. When blades came too close, she deflected them. When fire rained, from above she stood between him and death. She hated herself for it, yet could not stop. Protecting him had become as natural as breathing. The commander descended into the chaos like a storm. His massive frame cut through rebels with ease, his blade leaving nothing but ruin. His voice thundered over the battle. "Seize the human! Kill the traitor who guards him!" Serenia's chest burned at the word traitor, but she did not falter. She leapt to meet the commander's strike, her claws clashing against his blade, in a shower of sparks. For years she had followed his orders, believed in his cause. Now she stood against him, her heart pounding with the realization that she had chosen a new path, a path bound to the human at her side. Daniel staggered under the weight of his own wounds. Every breath was fire, every step a battle. Yet as the commander's soldiers swarmed him, something inside his body shifted. His vision blurred, his pulse roared, and his veins glowed faintly beneath his skin with a golden shimmer. He did not understand it, but he could feel it. The venom. The same poison that should have ended him was now coursing with strange power, strengthening him beyond what should be possible. When a soldier lunged, Daniel caught the blade with his bare hand. Instead of slicing through flesh, the weapon stopped, as though striking stone. Shock rippled through the crowd. Daniel stared at his hand, blood mixing with golden light, and a terrible realization struck him. The venom was not killing him. It was changing him. Serenia saw it too. Her eyes widened as she fought back another strike from the commander. "Your body," she shouted over the chaos. "It's adapting to my venom." Daniel grit his teeth, hurling the soldier aside with inhuman strength. Is that good or bad? Her heart pounded. Both. The prisoner surged forward, emboldened by the sight of a human fighting with impossible power. But the commander's fury only deepened. He roared, swinging his blade with crushing force. Serenia faltered under the blow, her knees buckling as sparks showered across the floor. Daniel rushed forward, his glowing veins pulsing with unnatural strength. He caught the commander's blade with both hands, the impact shaking the ground. The commander's eyes burned with rage. "You are no man," he snarled. "You are an abomination." Daniel's muscles strained as he held the blade. His body trembled with pain, yet his voice came steady. "No, I'm human, and that's what makes me dangerous." With a roar, he shoved the blade aside, striking the commander across the jaw, with a fist that cracked bone. The soldiers froze, shock gripping them as their leader stumbled back. The prisoners cheered, voices rising like thunder. For the first time, the Dominion fortress trembled not from control but from rebellion. But victory was not without cost. Daniel's strength surged unpredictably, his heart pounding too fast, his veins burning with light. His skin was hot too, the touch. His breath ragged as though the venom was eating him alive even as it gave him power. Serenia turned, horror flashing in her eyes as she saw the golden glow spreading across his body. "You cannot hold this power," she said, her claws gripping his arm. "It will consume you." Daniel forced a smile, though pain twisted his face. "Then I'll burn. But I'll burn for something that matters." Her heart clenched at his words. She had seen countless warriors fight, but none like him. He was not fighting for glory or for himself. He was fighting for others, for freedom, for a future that even she could barely imagine. The battle raged on, prisoners clashing with Dominion soldiers, flames rising higher into the night. And in the middle of it all stood the human and the alien, side by side, holding the line against an empire. Yet Serenia knew the truth. The venom inside him was not done. It was only the beginning. The fortress was falling. Walls cracked under fire. Smoke poured into the night sky, and the clash of steel and screams filled every corner. The prisoners fought with desperate courage, their chains turned into weapons, their voices rising in defiance. For the first time, the Dominion's stronghold shook with the sound of rebellion. Daniel stood at the center of it, his body trembling, under the weight of power he could not control. His veins glowed with golden fire, his strength surged beyond human limits, but every heartbeat felt like a hammer cracking him from the inside. His breaths came ragged, each one harder to draw. The venom that had once failed to kill him was now remaking him, and it was tearing him apart. Serenia slashed through a soldier and turned, her golden eyes locking on him. Horror seized her chest as she saw the glow racing up his neck, spreading across his face. His hands shook violently, his body convulsing as though flames burned beneath his skin. "You can't hold it," she cried, rushing to him. "The venom is consuming you." Daniel forced a smile through clenched teeth. "I told you. Pain doesn't mean defeat." His voice broke as another wave of agony crashed through him. His knees buckled, and for the first time Serenia saw him falter. The commander emerged from the smoke, bloodied but unbroken, his blade raised high. His voice thundered across the battlefield. "Look at your hero. His body fails, his mind crumbles. This is the truth of humans. They break." The words ignited fury in Serenia's chest. She stepped between Daniel and the commander, her claws raised. "No," she hissed, her voice shaking with rage. "This human does not break. He endures." The commander charged, his blade swinging with enough force to split stone. Serenia met him head-on, sparks flying as her claws clashed against steel. Her body screamed with exhaustion, but she refused to yield. Behind her, Daniel struggled to rise, his golden veins glowing brighter, the light threatening to swallow him whole. He could not last much longer. She knew it. He knew it. And so Serenia made her choice. She turned her head, her golden hair whipping through the smoke, and shouted to him, "Daniel, there is one way." His blurred eyes met hers. "What way?" Her claws locked with the commander's blade as she shouted the words that would change both their fates. "Another bite. Not of venom, but of bond. A forbidden ritual of my kind. If I give it to you, my life will bind with yours. You will not die, but neither will I ever be free." The battlefield seemed to freeze around them, soldiers halting, in shock at her words. Daniel's breath came ragged, but he managed a broken laugh. "Sounds like you're asking me to survive with you." Her chest tightened. It was not a laugh of arrogance, it was acceptance. With a roar, Serenia slammed the commander back with a final surge of strength, then dropped to Daniel's side. Her claws gripped his shoulders, her golden eyes burning into his. "This will change everything," she whispered. "Do you accept it?" Daniel's lips curled into a weak smile. "With you. Always." Before the venom could consume him, Serenia sank her fangs into his neck. Not with poison, but with power. The ritual bite. Golden light flared, blinding the battlefield. Soldiers stumbled back as a shockwave rippled through stone and fire. Daniel gasped as the burning agony transformed into something else. Warmth, strength, life. His veins still glowed, but now the light pulsed in rhythm with Serenia's, their energies bound as one. The fire that had been killing him now flowed in harmony, balanced by her gift. The commander staggered to his feet, his eyes wide with fury. "Abomination," he roared. "You betray your bloodline, Serenia." But when he charged again, it was not Serenia alone who faced him. It was Serenia and Daniel together. She struck with claws of gold, he with strength no human should have, wielded, and together their combined force shattered the commander's blade. With one final strike, they drove him to the ground, broken and defeated. Silence fell. The prisoners stared in awe. The Dominion soldiers, once fearless, stepped back, their faith shattered. For the first time, the fortress belonged not to power, but to hope. Daniel swayed, but Serenia caught him, their breaths heavy, their bodies glowing faintly with the bond. Her claws pressed lightly against his chest, feeling his heartbeat echoing with her own. "You should have died," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel's smile was soft, tired but alive. "Maybe I should have, but you gave me a reason not to." Her chest ached, though not from battle. For the first time, the warrior who had been feared across worlds felt something she could not name. The fortress burned behind them, the commander lay defeated, and 1,000 voices rose in freedom's cry. But in the middle of it all, in the quiet space where only 2 hearts beat as one, Serenia realized the truth. Her bite had not killed him. It had saved him. And together, they had changed the fate of 2 worlds.